The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody to the third webinar in the Pan-Pacific Safe Communities Network series for 2019. My name is Tracy Earle, and together with my colleague Tanya Peters, we'll be the hosts for the webinar. Tanya and myself are from the Safe Communities Foundation New Zealand. Before we get started with the presentation, just a few housekeeping matters. Each of you will have access to the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen. If you can familiarise yourself with its features, you'll be able to use this for letting us know of any problems you have. You can send a message via the control panel and we'll endeavour to resolve the issue. And you can also use the control panel to ask questions, either by typing the question in the question area, or you can put up your hand by clicking the yellow hand on the control panel. There'll be time for questions at the end of each presentation. If for some reason your question isn't answered, the presenters will provide an email address at the end of their presentation, and you can correspond with them personally that way. And this webinar will be recorded, and we'll let you know when it's available for viewing. It'll be available in the next couple of weeks. So today we have two presentations from New Zealand Safe Community Coordinators, and they're going to share with us the strengths of their respective safe community governance structures, the challenges they've faced, and how they have dealt with them. And they'll also talk about changes made to their structure or operation and why these changes were necessary and what brought them about. So today our first presenter is Liz Lambert. She's a coordinator for Safer Napier. And Napier's been a safe community since 2010. Liz has been the coordinator for 8 years, and during this time she's been involved in a wide range of initiatives and continuous improvement. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Liz to share.
Well, yes, thank you, Tracy, and hello to everyone listening. As Tracy said, I'm Liz, and it's my pleasure to be part of the Safer Napier Strategic Group. So as mentioned, today I'll be covering strengths, challenges, and some changes of the Safer Napier governance structure. So, first, we've got our strengths of our governance structure. So our people. We have a great group of people, and I don't just say that because some of them are listening. We are a long-standing group, as mentioned, first accredited in 2010. We are a diverse group covering many areas of safety, but also we've got high-level strategic thinkers, we've got doers, we've got people with strong links to our communities and target groups. We're fortunate to have strong commitment from senior positions with key stakeholder organisations. So much so, I sometimes have to not get nervous at meetings. We also receive strong leadership and support from Napier City Council. We do take care to get the right people for our strategic group through things like our terms of reference, what we see in a member. And once on the group, we do an induction and we try and make them part of our team as soon as possible. But perhaps most importantly, with our strengths and our people, it's that we're able to all have a laugh together. The next point I mention is our connections. So the strategic group does not work alone and has connections with many others. So this is a diagram, and you'll see our Safer Napier strategic group in the middle, but surrounded by lots of others. We've got reference groups, links into the community. You'll see there's a regional safe communities working group, and I'll cover that a bit later. You'll also see this wider group down on the left. So that represents the 43 organisations agencies and groups that signed a Safer Napier Memorandum of Commitment in 2015. We hold an annual workshop with this group and other people that we're now working with every year. In 2019, the annual workshop, 77 people participated from over 40 organisations, agencies and groups. Strategic members facilitate small group discussions at these, and this all feeds into annual planning and reporting. The third strength I thought I'd mention is measuring the impact against actual change and data. So this is an example. Using a results-based accountability, so RBA, framework, we report on the difference we are making. So this example is for our Napier is free from crime goal. And you'll see we've got some population indicators. So as you probably all know, that's the whole of the community, no one organisation responsible, but we can track how we're trending, where things we might need to focus on. And we include these in our annual report. I've put a link down the bottom there if anybody wants to see one or any more information. And we also look at the actual change in data for our projects and programs. So now we move to challenges faced and how our group overcame them. So the first point there I've got 3 points again for our challenges. That's maintaining engagement, commitment of members. So creating a common goal that all parties can see the benefit against their own target helps with this. Our annual workshop is important for this. Also, recognising one size does not fit all. So for some of our key partners who cannot commit to the bi-monthly, so that's every 2 months, meetings, we look at other ways to work with them. The next point, priority setting. And what I mean by this is safety has some broad and complex areas. It can be hard to drill down to what Safer Napier should be focusing on, a tangible thing we can do. Plus, like many of you, we don't have allocated project budgets, so funding. We've found the priority setting, especially with drug-related harm, which is a relatively new priority for us, a challenge. So we've started discussions with people working in the area and looking at current research and best practice. The third challenge got up there is time and resources. So allowing the time and resources to maintain our collaborative framework. It usually does take a bit longer when planning and working collaboratively, but it's always worth it. And we are very fortunate to be well supported by Napier City Council. So then I'll move on. I'm sorry, I can't gauge if I'm going too fast or too slow. Just can't see you. Now we're looking at changes that have been made to the structure, operation, and what promoted these changes. So again, we've selected 3. So over time, we have broadened our strategic group membership, but with care as to not get too big. The logos at the bottom are our current Safer Napier strategic group. Inclusion of new partners over time reflects changing focus areas. So some examples with the inclusion of the Napier City Business Inc., So during our re-accreditation, 2015-16, we identified both the need and opportunity to include businesses through this group. We've got the inclusion of the AA, the Automotive Association. So this was after the loss of NZTA representation on our strategic group. And this just allowed us to increase our road safety expertise at the group. And the third one, a fairly recent addition, is the Gambling Recovery Service. And that was following the inclusion of addiction-related harm as a priority area. The second point there, and you saw it in the earlier diagram, the Hawke's Bay Regional Working Group. So this includes the 4 Hawke's Bay safe communities: Wairoa, Napier, Hastings, and Central Hawke's Bay. And it's predominantly the coordinators and a few key partners. It arose about 5 years ago as the different communities were going through accreditation to provide support, but also a region-wide perspective. The group is still active and very useful. It provides collegial support for us coordinators, as well as, the sharing the ideas, resources and information. It also enables consistent safety messages across the region, so increasing the overall impact. And then my final change that we've made up there, the hosting of meetings. This was a change prompted after one of our annual governance surveys administered by the Safe Communities Foundation of New Zealand. So you probably all do these too, once a year, self-assessment for your governance group. And we do this as part of our commitment to continuous improvements. So the hosting of the meetings. Partners take turns hosting our meetings. This is an opportunity to find out more about each other, as the host usually gives a summary of their organisation and work programs. It also reinforces that Safer Napier and the strategic group is a collaborative process, as opposed to a council project, an advisory board to the council or something like that. We are always proactively trying to increase engagement and ownership for our partners. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions, or my email's up there, and more than happy for you to give me an email anytime. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Liz. It's Tanya here. We just had one question that was typed in as you were speaking, so I'm just going to unmute Wayne Levick from Auckland Council so he can ask you directly himself. Go ahead, Wayne.
Oh, thanks, Tracy, and kia ora, Liz, and others also. Yeah, as Liz says, I'm Wayne Levick, Project Manager for Auckland Obtaining Safe Community Accreditation, which we've now achieved. So my question, Liz, was around the, one of your slides pictured the free from crime goal. And I just wondered, how did that fit within your reference group structure? I think you pointed out 3 reference groups that you maintain down there: road safety, alcohol harm, and community resilience, I wrote down. So I just wondered, where does the free from crime goal fit, and how does it fit within that structure?
Well, hi Wayne, nice to meet you, and congratulations on accreditation. So we've got 5 goals, and crime is one of them. We don't have a set crime reference group. So at the moment, the way our crime prevention's working and things, yeah, it's sort of ticking along okay-ish. So we don't have too many reference groups. We try and keep it quite small. And as mentioned, the main feedback will come in through our annual workshop, and we do have a whole session linked to the crime.
Okay, thanks. Tanya, you okay with me asking another couple of questions? Is that all right? Or I'm happy to go into a queue.
We've got time for probably another couple of questions.
I just want to give others a chance. If others are listening and had a question, I'll just stand back for a second.
Yep. Go ahead.
Liz, would you be able to share the background for NZTA stepping out of the wider group? And I mean, I heard you say AA stepped in to essentially replace, I think that was your word, NZTA, but I'm just interested in why NZTA stepped out.
Oh, yes.
Or aside.
Yes, well, that was the retirement of a key position which didn't get replaced in the organisation. So it was more a logistical thing, I guess. And we do still have strong ties with NZTA, and they provide data when we need it. They just couldn't continue with that meeting commitment. Yeah, but our AA representative is very competent and capable, so very pleased.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Wayne, for your questions, and thank you, Liz. I don't think, as far as I can see, that we have any further questions, but if anyone thinks of anything, they could always email Liz or come back to Tracy or myself. And now I'm going to hand over to Tracy so she can introduce our next speaker.
Well, thank you, Tanya, and thank you, Liz, for a really great presentation and plenty of key messages there for everybody. Our second presenter today is Sania Thompson. She's a Safe Community Coordinator for Safe in the South, which includes Invercargill, Southland District and Gore. Sania was a key player in gaining Safe Community accreditation in 2017, and she's going to share the government structure that operates in their area, which operates across more than one territorial authority. So over to you, Sania.
Hello to everyone. Thank you very much, Tracy, for the introduction. Just trying to figure out how do I remove this box. Can you guys see the box? Is my screen visible to everyone?
Sania, I can only see the GoToWebinar thing, but
it's perfect, Sania. I can see it all.
Oh,
that's right. Oh, shivers. How do I hide the panel? If I just, oh yeah, here. All right, sorry about this hiccup. Hello to everyone, and thanks to Tracy very much for the introduction. I'm humbled to be presenting at this webinar today because I always think that Safe in the South is a relatively young community, and we don't have all of our processes 100% smooth going. But I believe it can be learning for a lot of safe communities who are at the same stage as we are. And to those ones who only recently joined the foundation, they may encounter some of the same issues later on. And so you would know what to expect, and that won't come as much of a surprise to you. So I was asked to talk about successes and challenges of our governance group. And before I go into this, I just wanted to outline briefly the role of the governance group and in how do they do what they do. So for a nonprofit organization, the essential role of the governance group is to make sure that the social mission is being achieved. And at the same time, governance group is ensuring that the organization stays viable. And how do they do this? Is by providing strategic leadership. This is a bit of a cliche phrase. People use it a lot, and I think without often realizing fully what it actually means. And so let us break it down. So first of all, governance group provides the purpose for the organization. Why do we exist? Gives us direction and determine what is important for us as an organization. Secondly, governance group also constantly scanning the environment and making sure that the organization stays relevant and what we're trying to achieve is still achievable and still topical to our community. Next bit is probably the biggest of all of them, is actually making and implementing decisions that advance your organization and make you a step closer at a time to achieving your overall vision. And we shouldn't forget also that governance groups also monitors the organizational performance and the performance of coordinator or any other employed staff to make sure that the performance is consistent with the expectations. Now, let us talk about the Safe in the South Governance Group. And you can see now a picture taken in 2016 on the day when we were accredited as Safe Community. At this picture, not everyone who was involved at the time at the governance level was present, and some of the people are not there anymore, either because they moved away or because they were delegated on the day to represent someone from the governance group. Our latest addition to the governance group is Galway District Council has changed, and you can see a member of our governance group, Mayor Tracy Hicks, and a coordinator, Bernadette. There's been a few changes over time, and essentially Safe in the South Governance Group started with a small core group of governance group members who discussed what other organizations should be represented, and then they went out and approached those organizations, and some said yes and some said no, and other organizations approached us because they thought it would be a good fit for them to be sitting on the governance group. So some, you can see logos of organizations who are involved in the governance group at the moment. Some are more active than others, and I will come back to it later on in the presentation. So in regards to our successes, we've had a few, so let us talk about them first. So what works really well for us is we have financial support both for projects and for wages. All territorial local authorities that are involved in the Cargill City Council, Southland District Council, and Galway District Council provide money for projects, and ACC gives money for my wages, for coordinators' wages, which is really great because I'm only a part-time staff member, and if I had to do fundraising, I would just never had time to get anything done. So it is really special that we have that financial support from our governance group members. I believe what works really well as well for our organization is that we have a diverse group of people who bring different perspectives on things. And people are not afraid to express their opinions, even though they may be quite diverse, which results that we have a constructive dialogue rather than a personal confrontation. And yeah, so it's gives us very fruitful discussions, and I think it's something that works really well. And another thing that our governance group is nailing is they're not afraid to make decisions. For example, we have been recommended to add a rural representative to our governance group, but after a discussion, the group had decided that we actually have rural representation in the form of district councils being on board, as well as other organizations. And another decision, quite a big one, that they recently had to make was change of structure. We had 4 work streams sitting under our governance group from the inception of the community, and this is something that wider community has recommended. But over the period of nearly 4 years, we realized that it isn't working the way we want it to work. So the governance group has decided to move on from it. However, we've had some challenges along the way, and one of them was attendance at meetings. It is really important to make a quorum, but I think every coordinator should remember that members of the governance groups are chief executives in their own respective organizations, and finding the time for them is quite tricky. Very often they have other things that get in the way, their main jobs, naturally, and sometimes if things clash, they have to prioritize things. Also, finding the time that suits everyone is nearly impossible. There will always be some things that clash and not suitable for others. At the moment, I think we're at the stage when the time for meeting suits most. However, it is not ideal. It is best that we can do at the moment. Next on is a concept that presents most of the challenges that we've had, and I summarized it as changes within member organizations. This happens a lot, and unfortunately these changes are inevitable. So whenever you have a chief executive who moves on, you may get or may not get an interim person taken over from them, and this person may be of not of the same knowledge or have a different degree of commitment, and that's fine. That's just what it is. We've had examples when a chief executive was seconded to other parts of the country, and even though this person couldn't attend, they delegated their assistants to attend meetings. However, even though we had people in attendance, very often these people were different, and they didn't have the same background and the same knowledge about safe communities, and were not so familiar with the concept. One of other changes within organizations that affected us quite a lot, and I believe it is an issue for some other safe communities around the country, is restructure of district health board. So the governance group member who was on our group, well, that position was dissolved and the person moved on, and for over 2 years we've never had any representative. We've approached DHB a number of times, asking them to appoint someone because we really want to hear their voice. But the appointments are still being made, the changes aren't complete. So, and only just now we got a representative who's very valuable for our safe community, because this person has got good knowledge of the community and good understanding of the safe communities concept. And another challenge that we have is EV representation. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have Maori voice, and we do believe having EV representation is really important, but we also understand that EV gets asked to be representative on hundreds of different boards, and they might just not have the time to make it happen and not always able to attend. So I would like to see that changed in the future. Some areas for our further development that I can see is finding that balance between governance and management. I think we already see a lot of it happening for our community, but it is probably something that we can develop even further. Sometimes at the meeting, we find ourselves in the middle of discussion, and then somebody says, okay, we need to stop now, we're getting into that management level, and we want to make sure that we stay above that. And that's always really good, so would be really great to see more of that. Commitment. So yes, governance group members may not always be able to attend meetings. That's absolutely fine. We've had some brilliant examples of how that can be mitigated when a governance group member isn't able to attend. They would send some comments, some things that they wanted to be raised at the meeting. They would ask some things to be clarified, and that is a great example that others may want to follow. Oh, and before I finished, I also wanted to say that for us, we probably need to consider how well do we communicate the value of safe communities, because some of the challenges that we have, they probably a result of not very strong advocating for safe communities on our side, and this is probably another thing that we can be doing better. So if you want to get any more information on some of the topics that I've raised, or if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. Otherwise, thank you very much for giving me a chance to present. Thanks.
Thank you, Sania. That was an informative presentation. Just to kick off the questions, I have one question to ask you. In terms of the work streams and your reference groups, I wonder if you could just explain a little bit further around how that's now working, since you stated that you have changed the structure of that.
Absolutely, thank you. So when we had a community hui at which we decided that Southland should pursue the accreditation, we had a bit of a brainstorming, and it was decided that there are 4 major obvious work streams in our community, and we should form working groups around those streams. So our 4 work streams were community, family, workplace, and road and fire. And so we tried to keep the structure of these working groups, and we would have some members within those streams, and then would have some joint meetings with leaders of each of those 4 work streams. However, those some of those challenges that I talked about in relation to the governance group, they're also true to the members of the steering group. We've also had some changes within the organizations and a commitment and attendance, so all of that. But the decision to change the structure came from realization that the structure was too rigid, and in reality, whenever we worked on a project, there's been a lot of overlapping, especially within the community and family stream. Very often it was practically impossible to separate those 2. Or another example, we had a road and fire stream, and very often things that were within those streams were completely different, and one project would be exclusively for fire and one project exclusively for road, or like road and community. So yeah, obviously a lot of overlapping, unnecessary separation, and we just decided that we need to give our community more flexibility and make that steering group level more fluid. So we have decided to dissolve the streams, and instead of that, whenever we have a project that we're working on, we communicate this to all the stakeholders that we have, and invite them to participate, and depending on their interest and capability, they can decide whether to opt in or out.
Thank you, Sania. I think that explains it perfectly. Did anybody have any questions they can think of at the moment? Any further questions they'd like to ask Sania? You can raise your hand on the control panel or type it in. Otherwise, if nobody has any questions at this moment, I will hand back over to Tracy.
Well, thanks, Tanya, and thank you to both our presenters today. Certainly lots of good, some good key messages in those presentations. So I'd just like to wrap up today by saying on behalf of all participants, I'd like to thank our Liz and Sania for taking the time to share with us today. And as Tanya said, if you have any questions, please feel free to email Liz, Sania, or Tanya or myself. Can we ask that you please fill out the survey on this webinar? And then just want to let you know that the recorded webinar link will be available within the next 2 weeks on our website, and we will advise accordingly. And we're happy for you to share that link with your colleagues. So thank you everyone for your time today. Have a good rest of the day.